Today we're going to talk about ServiceNow and Tanium and the partnership that's starting to really blossom and seeing some real value from it. And today we have two experts, one from Tanium and one from ServiceNow. Matt Marsden, who's the VP of the Technical Account Management, and Jonathan Album, who is the CTO for the federal space of ServiceNow. So Matt, I'd like to turn it over to you for a quick introduction.
Yeah, good morning. Matt Marsden. I've been with Tanium about 7.5 years, spent 20 years supporting the government directly before this. My background is in operational cyber, and I'm supporting the ServiceNow relationship for our public sector team.
Thank you. Jonathan?
Hi, everyone. Jonathan Albom. I'm the federal CTO for ServiceNow. I've been at ServiceNow for over 4 years. Prior to ServiceNow, I worked in the federal government for many years as a chief information officer, working mostly at the Department of Agriculture, and eventually became the CIO for the department. So, these topics around the assets we have in our environment, how many there are, where they are, who has them, how do we manage them, what do we know? These are very personal topics to me because I was challenged across many different CIO positions to be able to have that visibility. And it's a really important topic for anybody who's a leader in the IT space.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate that. And I'm Ed Debish. I'll round out our intros real quick. I joined Tanium approximately 2 years ago. I spent 27 years serving in the Marine Corps, and I'm now currently a director for customer success, technical account management. So I'd like to start out with the first question. And this one I'm going to start out with you, Matt. So if you can. So there have been several high-profile cybersecurity initiatives lately. And they're receiving a lot of attention, primarily around zero trust and SBOM. Why is high fidelity data and visibility really foundational to those initiatives?
I appreciate the question, Ed. So there are several high-profile initiatives in the federal government today, but certainly zero trust is top of mind for everybody as the government moves toward a zero trust approach and strategy across whole of government. We also see some smaller programs like software bills of material and getting insights into applications that are deployed across the estate and potential vulnerabilities contained within. DHS CISA has also released several binding operational directives, 2201 for known exploitable vulnerabilities and 2301 for asset visibility and vulnerability detection. All of these programs have one thing in common, and that's they're all founded in visibility and the ability to control your devices across the entire estate. So regardless of the program, whether it's IT operations, risk and compliance, vulnerability detection and remediation, everything starts with comprehensive visibility. So you just have to know what's in your environment, every device that's connected to your network, so that you can adequately inventory, create configuration items, know what's in your estate. Then you can start to correctly categorize, assess, and ultimately remediate problems in those devices. So all of these programs are rooted in asset visibility and control.
Yeah, that's great. So what you can't see, you cannot protect.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jonathan, next question over to you. So there are plenty of examples of how we see ServiceNow used in the environments across the federal space. What are some of the creative and more forward-leaning ways that you've actually seen your customers use ServiceNow?
So I think, to answer your question, it's really about how they think about the CMDB. That's the starting point. And the most successful customers see the CMDB as the foundation for the digital work, the digital transformation that they're undergoing. Because if you have this data that Matt's describing, you now have the ability to really think comprehensively about risk. You have the ability to prioritize security incidents based on business impact. You have the ability not just to manage your hardware and your software and really look at cost savings opportunities, but you can start to think about how you pay down the technical debt that agencies have accrued over time. So when you have this data, it gives you the ability to be much more proactive in your overall IT management. And then as you become a more efficient IT organization, as you begin to manage your IT better, you kind of move to higher value functions as a CIO. You're doing more strategy. You're developing applications using low-code platforms and leveraging the technologies in your environment. You're becoming a lot smarter about how you build and maintain IT. But it comes back to knowing what you have, whether it's for a binding operational directive or it's for zero trust. This is really powerful data for a chief information officer. And as soon as you know it and you begin to prioritize your work based on it, you're positioned to deliver a lot of value to the organization. The CIO is not delivering technology for the sake of technology. They're delivering technology that needs to provide value to the mission. And my experience tells me that if I don't know what's in my environment, that is really hard to do. Begin just a manager, not a leader. And this is the way to transition to that business leadership role as a CIO.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate that. I loved your comment about the CNDB really being the foundation for the digital work. That's awesome. Matt, I'm going to ask you the next question. So we'll pivot here just a little bit. But what transformations have you seen when organizations have better data at speed at scale?
Yeah, thanks, Ed. So transformation is really the right word here. So as organizations increase their visibility and they start to really wrap their arms and technologies around all of the devices in their network, it really does change the game, and it allows those organizations to move from sort of the baseline CIS controls 1 and 2 activities of hardware and software asset inventory into higher level activities like detecting and prioritizing risk, remediating risks and real-time threats, and ultimately driving towards the goal of continuous monitoring and automation. So Tanium and ServiceNow have come together on several different fronts, and we are attacking these problems from multiple aspects. Today, we have 3 out-of-the-box, ready-to-go integrations that are available in the ServiceNow space, and they start with Tanium IT Asset Management. And IT Asset Management allows us to directly integrate with the CMDB and the ITSM product within ServiceNow. This is all about visibility. So this is providing real-time data that is updated as changes happen in your environment into your CMDB as the source of truth. So this allows operators within the CMDB console to actually make informed decisions about what's happening in their environment. Building on that, we have Tanium Total Experience with ServiceNow. This allows agents to interact directly with end users on their platform. It allows them to do continuous scanning for performance impact and for application crashes in the endpoint. It allows the agent to predict and identify potential problems on the endpoint before a trouble ticket is submitted. And it really allows the organization to effectively manage the digital employee experience holistically across the entire estate. And then ultimately, we have visibility, risk, and compliance, which is probably the highest order integration that we have between Tanium and ServiceNow today. And that allows for SecOps teams to effectively connect directly to the endpoints that are within the estate through the ServiceNow console using Tanium under the hood, and allows for investigations, real-time remediation, automated patch compliance and deployment, application management, all within a single user console. So I think comprehensively, all of these capabilities put together really is transformative for organizations that have embraced both platforms.
Yeah, well done.
And I'd just like to add to that, if I can, for a second. I think what Matt's describing begins a journey for organizations that want to become more automated in their IT processes. So a lot of organizations have very siloed data and manual processes, and they're quite reactive. I experienced that firsthand, and as we automate more, because we have a tool like ServiceNow that is great at orchestrating work, and it's working on data that can be trusted. We can move from reactive to more responsive to more intelligent as an organization, and we're doing better analysis of problems and resolving things faster. we have the ability to eventually predict where problems might occur and be very proactive in our management of the environment. But, those things are happening, or those things are possible because of a tool like Tanium being this very reliable feeder system into the CMDB. So there's a lot of things that, we can do as IT organizations, government agencies, that we can't do, that we can do if we have this data, that we're not able to do without tools like Tanium in the back end providing accurate information. It's hard to operate on data that you don't trust. And I think that trusted data makes a big difference in how we manage and improve our operations.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jonathan. When we go to the next question, I think I'm going to start with Matt first. But so a lot of our customers have both technologies deployed in their environments, both Tanium and ServiceNow. How would you recommend to our partners to work together and work better to serve the federal government on some of their unique challenges?
Ed, I think this question speaks directly to what the government is communicating as a requirement for industry today. And I've spent the last couple of weeks talking to many of our government leaders. And one resounding theme is that there is an expectation not only for public-private partnerships, for industry partners to work with government to deliver capabilities and solutions, but there is an increased expectation that there is private-private partnership among industry partners to come together to engineer solutions for government partners. They absolutely want out-of-the-box solutions that deliver value with the minimum amount of tooling and with ease of use because of the workforce challenges that our agencies and departments see today. So I think the work that Tanium and ServiceNow are doing together is a great example of this. These are two broadly deployed technologies that have really come together on the engineering level to build and integrate technologies to deliver out-of-the-box solutions that solve real problems for our government customers. This isn't just a splashy web page that puts together two disparate tools. It really is deep technical integrations that allows our technologies to work seamlessly so that the operator can accomplish really higher order tasks. So I think that this is a great example of what the government demand signal is today.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Jonathan, same question.
Yeah, I think that, as I hear from CIOs and leaders across agencies, a common theme is ServiceNow is a tool to help manage the chaos that has grown up over time. We know that our IT organizations have grown very organically. There hasn't always been a strong strategy about why different agencies or sub-agencies are buying technologies and how they're supposed to work together. So that integration concept is really critical. And if ServiceNow does one thing extremely well, it's that connection for different systems across the enterprise, legacy systems, systems of record, other technologies. That data can come together on the ServiceNow platform and then be leveraged via workflow technologies to get outcomes. And that's a core principle for ServiceNow. And we take it, a little higher than just a CMDB. It's why am I, managing all these related systems in silos and requiring people to, perpetuate the swivel chair interface, moving from one system to the other, when ServiceNow can bring that data together in a single place. We focus it then on a tool like Tanium and the kinds of data that Tanium can populate into the CMDB. And now I have this source of truth to do these operations that we've been talking about. It's a much better operating position for a CIO. And to Matt's point, these are the things that the government is demanding. They need simplicity in their operations that have grown to be very complex over time. So we can bring some order to the chaos together and be ready to do great things for agencies. And I know we have a number of examples like that.
If you don't mind, Ed, I'd like to go back to that. I think that's a really strong comment that you made, Jonathan. The complexity is certainly a theme here. And I think more than anything, what Tanium and ServiceNow working together does for the agency and the department is it allows them to add some simplicity and to reduce that complexity in a complex world. So one interesting part of this problem is the workforce. Again, over the last couple of weeks and months, we've heard government leaders talk about workforce challenges, workforce development challenges, skills gaps. And I think that Tanium and ServiceNow integrations are a great example of how technologies can come together to deliver a more simple and seamless user environment for an already constrained workforce. The barriers to entry are very low. It's a common user interface to learn. All of the functionality is delivered through a single console, and it really does allow operators to come into the workforce, get up to speed very quickly, and actually start to make a measurable impact with relatively little training and expertise. So I think it's really a force multiplier for our government operators.
I'm going to add on to one thing there. When we talk about simplicity, and we're able to eliminate products from the environment, we're also making our agencies more secure. The more things we have, the bigger the attack surface, the more risk there is. So if we can think about leveraging the joint capabilities of Tanium ServiceNow to streamline processes that today might be implemented using multiple technologies, and we take things out of the environment, we have two technologies that are effectively built to work together. We have a better operation, but we also have fewer things fewer points of failure, fewer opportunities for a bad guy to exploit a vulnerability. So we're making our organizations more secure and mature at the same time. And we can then apply that same sort of model in other areas of the operation, and it becomes an approach for agencies to leverage tools they already have and make sure that if they're working together to full capacity, what other things can they eliminate, and again, make their organizations more secure in that process.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see that in many organizations where we're trying to go to the platform approach to reduce the amount of training required for the operator. And if you could reduce that, then the flash to bang to deliver value and get them into the console and actually do their job and be productive is so much quicker. So absolutely. So thank you, Jonathan. Matt, did you have any follow-on comments to that, or would you like me to transition to the next question?
No, I think Jonathan covered it greatly. So
I think you nailed it. I got to tell you, he's got the hot take for ServiceNow as a tool to remove chaos. I love that. And I would say Tanium and ServiceNow are both tools to help remove chaos. All right, so Matt, next question over to you. How is this partnership reducing IT complexity, risk, and helping threat hunters and IT operators pivot to action and save time while doing so? We kind of covered it a little bit in the last question, but maybe you can talk more about the threat hunters and the IT operations pivoting to action.
Yeah, I think we just touched on this a bit. Certainly reducing the attack surface and removing or reducing the proliferation of point solutions or single-use tools that are in the environment, consolidating on platforms that allow maximum utility across all of your managed devices is certainly critical to providing a more secure and defendable environment. But as far as enabling the operators, the incident response technicians or engineers, the threat hunters, the people that are responding to incidents and looking for indicators of compromise, interoperability is really key. So one thing that Tanium does exceptionally well is provides that key insight into what's happening as it's happening on the endpoint. ServiceNow provides all of that rich, high-fidelity context as to how that is applicable to other devices and where there might be other indicators that are related. It also provides the AI machine learning engine that helps us to look at all of this data and make sense of it. I think today, when we talk about the data problem, and I do truly believe that we have a data problem, we talk about the volume, the veracity, and the velocity of data. And this absolutely contributes to the complexity that Jonathan was referring to a couple of minutes ago. The data is being generated at a rate that is more than humans can assess and analyze. So there are some critical things that Tanium and ServiceNow do together in order to better enable the operator. One, with the volume of data, we allow for that data to remain on the endpoint for real-time hunt and threat investigations, and only to pull back the critical information into the CMDB and ultimately into a SIM tool. We allow for the scalable search across all of the devices. ServiceNow provides the comprehensive visibility into all devices that are on the network, whether it's on domain, off domain, regardless of how it's joined. Tanium allows for the reachability to those devices to look for activity that's potentially nefarious or malicious on those endpoints. And then software management, the ability to deliver patches, identify vulnerabilities, remove vulnerable applications, do real-time in-place updates, whether OSs or individual applications. All of that together comprehensively enables the operator to do better SecOps and to reduce the vulnerability exposure and ultimately make for a more secure environment.
And just by having this data in the CMDB and having it tied to systems or business operations, we can prioritize the various configuration items. And when there is an incident happening, prioritization is really important, because if you without it, it's not really easy to know what's most important and where attention and resources should be focused. So if we know what all these things are, we've tied them to business capabilities, and we're able to apply resources to the most critical business capabilities, we can lessen the impact of an incident. And incidents are going to happen. When I started as a CIO, it was the perspective was, oh, nothing bad could ever happen in the environment. It's a critical failure if there was some kind of security vulnerability found. Well, we know this in this world today. Incidents are going to happen. There are going to be bad guys. There are a lot of attackers. So now I think we've, as a community, really pivoted from, oh, you let something bad into the environment, to something bad, of course, was in the environment. How did you respond when you knew that it was there? And what did you do when the incident was occurring? So if we can, again, building on what Matt's saying, have these configuration items in our CMDB, have them tied to business capabilities, have the right prioritization around them, and respond appropriately. Now we can answer the question when the secretary asks, well, what did you do? I said, well, we went after the critical, the IT capabilities to support these critical business functions, and we made sure that those were secure. And then we moved on to other things, and we focused on what was most important to mission delivery first. I think that's a very defensible answer in front of Secretary or Congress or whoever, or your taxpayers, of course. So, there's a lot of ancillary benefits from doing these things, and knowing where to focus your time and resources.
It's really interesting. I think that's a great point, Jonathan. And we talk about prioritizing work, right? And Ed mentioned a little bit ago getting to the left of bang. I think this really all speaks to moving from a naturally reactive posture to a proactive posture. It's very difficult to prioritize and to focus on which business functions are most critical when your hair's on fire. And so when you have gaps in your environment, when you have lack of visibility, when you have more point solutions than you can count, you are constantly reacting to the world around you. And so what we deliver for the operator, is exactly that. And to the leaders, ultimately, it gives them the opportunity to really move to a proactive state, start to prioritize what business functions are most critical, focus resources in the appropriate areas to further the mission, instead of having a team run around like the,
and if we're doing
the circus.
Yeah, and if we're doing our jobs really well as leaders, we can have these conversations long before an incident is happening. These conversations are ones that we should have now, when our hair's not on fire, when things seem to be okay. Well, let's make sure we're all in sync about where we focus our time and attention when something bad goes wrong. Is having, a strong risk management focus, risk management plan that can be executed in a time of crisis. So we're responding and not reacting. And I think it's a subtle but really important difference. And you cannot do that. Let's remember what we're talking about here. You cannot do the response and move away from this idea of I'm reacting if you don't know what's in your environment, if you don't have a strong CMDB, if you don't take the time and the energy to really look at the environment and collect the data and understand it. You do that, now you are in such a better position when something bad happens, and something bad will happen. It's very likely in a complex environment like we operate across the government. So these are important steps to take today.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. So we talked a little bit about data earlier, at least Matt spoke about it, about the volume of data and how we're trying to find those needles in the haystack of needles that are out there to be able to act on and respond to. But with all of that happening in the background, and Tanium and ServiceNow being contributors to actually find those needles and then act in them, like what would be, Jonathan, the significance of some sort of unauthorized change, not being able to track all the changes that are being made in your environment when you're trying to act and respond in kind to an incident?
Yeah, so when things change without proper awareness, we're operating on data that's no longer accurate. So everything that we've just described, the ability to respond and not react, the ability to have a plan and execute it when something goes wrong, the likelihood of that plan working is a lot lower because the environment's not the one that we thought it was. So having that governance is a critical capability for agencies. And it goes beyond sometimes just I'm going to make a change here or a change there, and did I go through a proper process? How am I managing my ServiceNow instance? How am I managing this environment that, again, ServiceNow is a platform for lots of things beyond IT, application development, for HR, for customer experience. So if I have proper governance around the platform, the teams working on HR projects or customer experience projects or doing low-code development are not impacted by changes. So not only am I, if I'm making unauthorized changes or unknown changes, am I impacting these other teams? I'm making my risk management, my operations less secure and less sustainable. So I'm impacting a lot of people, and ultimately the mission served by IT is going to have an impact. So we really need to be, again, now at this point when things are in an organization operating, let's take time to understand how it's operating and put the right controls in place and really think it through, so governance doesn't become the proverbial four-letter word that people shy away from and don't want to be participating, but it's practical and it's easy, it's accessible, and through that it is one of these things that people do because they know of the benefits, and it doesn't take too much out of them to go through that process.
It's funny to hear Jonathan use the word easy when talking about governance and compliance, some of the most complex systems that we have in government and industry. But I think that's a great point. Having comprehensive visibility and the ability to truly know what's happening in your environment really does make difficult tasks easier. And so moving from the state where we're continually striving for compliance and reaching a point where we are compliant and then monitoring for change is really sort of the nirvana state. And ServiceNow absolutely allows that to happen in the largest, most distributed, complex environments in the world. And so I think it's very important to call out the fact that governance and compliance with the right tooling and with the right workforce really can be easy.
Yes, easy.
Well, yeah, let me just add on to that. Sometimes, I've been in organizations where the governance model, came out of a textbook, and it's a theoretical model and it's not practical. So, maybe we can substitute the word easy for practical. It's not necessarily easy. That might be the wrong way to think about it, but it needs to be practical and definitely accessible by people in the organization that have access to these systems. And when I say accessible, there's governance boards and memos and lots of things to submit, it becomes hard. People have, very demanding jobs. So then I'm going to add in these processes they have to follow. So how do we make that part of it, as simple and practical so people follow it? And now we have the ability to do the right things when there are changes in the environment. So it's possible, but again, these are the things that take forethought, and they don't, use the word easy, they don't come easy. This takes experience, and it takes teams to really be committed to it.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. I completely agree. I think governance needs to help simplify the process for the operators. At the end of the day, they can't make things more complex and overly challenging for them to actually do their jobs. Matt, were you going to chime in?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, as a parent of teenagers, I can certainly tell you that the more, roadblocks and controls that you put into place, the more creative end users get. So, I think when we talk about these certification and authorization programs, when it comes to the audit process, we need users and agencies and departments to be empowered, and we need them to have confidence in their estate so that when they can go into an audit with confidence, there's less potential to potentially work around controls or find gaps. If it's easier to do the right thing, then people will absolutely do the right thing.
Yeah, excuse me, completely agree. So I think we're kind of coming up close on time. I'm going to go ahead and ask my final question. We've got about 10 minutes to kind of talk through on both sides, both Tanium and ServiceNow. And Matt, I'm going to ask you first, and then Jonathan, I'm going to flip the question on its head and then ask you the same question, but I'm going to switch the two nouns. I'm going to switch Tanium and ServiceNow in the question. So final recommendations to others on how to leverage Tanium to get the maximum value from their ServiceNow investment. Matt, over to you.
Sort of a loaded question, Ed, but I appreciate it. So really, the best way to leverage the value of Tanium is to use all of the aspects of the visibility and control that we deliver. So it's not enough to have 80% visibility over 70% of your assets, right? If you're really going to secure and defend your environment, you need to be comprehensively deployed. Every enclave, every separate network, every multi-cloud hosting environment needs to have coverage. You need to know every device that's connected to your network, what it's doing, what the state is. If you're moving towards zero trust, you need to have comprehensive knowledge about the device and the user that's joining your network. And then ultimately, you need to be able to identify where that sensitive data is located and monitor for change. So the first most critical step into realizing value from a platform like Tanium is to understand that visibility is the foundation for all other higher order tasks. If you are lacking visibility and you have gaps in your devices, then it's impossible to truly implement and execute against security operations or true IT management.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. And Jonathan, same question, but excuse me, just a little bit stated differently. Final recommendations on others, how to leverage ServiceNow to get their maximum value from their Tanium investment.
So I think it comes down to that integration capability that I spoke about before. Again, ServiceNow at its core is a platform for connecting things, connects people, connects organizations, data, systems. And if you think about ServiceNow as that integration point for a tool like Tanium, you have a lot of power in the organization. You can really transform IT processes. One example we haven't really touched on yet is the work that we're doing together on the CDM program, Continuous Diagnostics and Mitigation Program out of DHS and CISA. And there's one agency in particular that was using ServiceNow as its platform for digital transformation, already a Tanium customer. And they recognized that by leveraging these capabilities we're talking about in Tanium to ingest and understand the data in the environment, using ServiceNow as the integration layer in their CDM architecture, they could really streamline their overall approach to CDM. They eliminated some other products like we've talked about already. They eliminated the need for custom coding and scripting. And, in this organization today, Tanium is collecting lots of data on endpoints and risk and other attributes of the environment. ServiceNow is the place where that data comes together. They've created an agency level dashboard, or can create an agency level dashboard using ServiceNow, and then ServiceNow is used to transmit the data to the CDM dashboard. And that's a really slimmed down architecture with fewer products from across the IT spectrum working together to make CDM work. Now, Tanium and ServiceNow are leading the charge to operate CDM for this agency. And they've been very successful with this approach. And I know other agencies are looking at this, and DHS is looking at this as an alternative solution for organizations that have Tanium and ServiceNow in place. So it's a really good story, and I think a great answer to the to your question, Ed, about what do we do? Well, we focus on using products that we have in our environments, using the core capability of ServiceNow to integrate this data and use it as a lever to streamline our operation and create a single place to go to see information from across the spectrum of IT operations or other aspects of agency operations, and then use the technologies in the ServiceNow platform to do appropriate reporting, to do workflow, to use the AI, ML capabilities of the platform to get outcomes. And we're just a lot more efficient when we think about it this way. We're not adding new products. We're using existing products together to really maximize value. There's a lot of synergy when you use these things in a way that where they're built to work together, like they are in this case, with all the integrations that you've created. And that could be a real game changer for CIOs, and it is. And I think it's the future for how agencies leverage platforms and foundational technologies like Tanium.
Yeah, that's awesome, Jonathan. Thank you for all of those comments, and Matt as well. We've covered a lot of different areas from both technologies, Tanium and ServiceNow, and how they integrate together and how we get some amazing value from them. But I think foundationally, it's both of us, I think, have a similar approach, and that's use the platform. Use both platforms together. All of the capabilities that are built within combined together are going to give you a greater outcome than if used separately. And I think that's a resounding yes from both sides of this equation from what we've seen. And I know that a lot of our customers, like I mentioned earlier, they both have ServiceNow and they both have Tanium, and now it's up to us to help drive them together to make sure that they're getting the most value from both of those products. And I would like to just give Jonathan, your hot take was amazing. Matt, I did capture one for you, and I think it's moving away from being reactive to being proactive, and helping us prioritize our resources. That is so foundational, so true to everything we do as leaders and within an organization to help provide guidance downstream to focus people on the most pressing needs.
And the great part about that is that it's not hypothetical. ServiceNow and Tanium today are doing that for our customers. As Jonathan highlighted a real world example, I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you to Jonathan, the ServiceNow team. Your partnership's been incredible, and I am very excited about the future of the integrations that we're delivering to our government customers.
Likewise, Matt. Thanks for having me here today for this conversation, and Ed, great job moderating. I look forward to continuing the conversation with both of you very soon.
And thank you both very much. It's been my pleasure.